There is one approach to landscape photography that practically guarantees that you're going to come home with photos that you're proud of, no matter where you live or how little time that you've got to go and shoot. And that one thing is the power of subtraction. And in this video, I'm going to break down what subtraction is and how it's instantly going to turn your snapshots into professional looking landscape photos. And then I'm going to share how to know if you've actually taken a pro level photo so you can start being proud of the images that you're creating. Now, what is the difference between these two images? Well, one of them is a beautiful landscape photo, and the other is similar to the thousands of photos on your husband or wife's phone that once they've been taken, they never get looked at again. One is a landscape photo, one is a snapshot. And the interesting thing is that if you want to take more beautiful landscape photos, all you've got to do is stop doing the things that create snapshots, and well, you're most of the way there. And that is the power of subtraction in action. So what are the steps that most people take when creating a boring, uninspired snapshot photo, so then we know what to avoid doing when we want to create stunning landscape shots? Well, when people take snapshots, they tend to do the following. They shoot at eye level with the camera pointing straight ahead. They shoot at around 24mm, which is basically the same focal distance as your phone's main camera. They don't really line up a composition and they just grab the shots in a rush. There's no waiting for the right light, the weather, or the right moment. And then they let the phone do all the editing for them. So the highlights are blown, the shadows are noisy, it all looks very flat and just a bit uninspiring. And there's something interesting to note here. Not a single item on that list relates to the performance of your camera body or your camera lens. And this is because great landscape photography comes down to how you take your photos rather than the gear that you use to take them. Because you could have 20 grand's worth of GFX camera bodies and lenses in your bag, but if you followed the steps that I just went through, then you'd still be taking boring snapshots. And there are so many people who spend thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on gear that are taking crappy snapshots, and you don't want to be one of those people. But if you stop doing the things on the list, you're within an instant, you're going to be taking better images than 90% of the people out there who call themselves landscape photographers. Okay, so now you've cleared out these snapshot habits. Now let's talk about what actually makes a landscape photo look professional. And this is so important. I want it to stick in your head forever after this video. And so let me introduce the table of professional landscape photos. Now, I'm using this metaphor because a professional looking landscape photo stands on four legs, just like a real, non-cliche, non-metaphorical table. And if you remove one leg from a table, it gets wobbly. If you remove two, it falls over. And if you remove three or more legs, well, it's not a table anymore, it's just a piece of wood on the floor. And the legs that make up the table of professional images are location, composition, conditions, and the edit. And every single stunning landscape photo that you've ever seen, bar none, whether it's on Instagram, in a professional art gallery, or in a magazine, those images are strong in at least 3 out of 4 of these areas, if not all of them altogether. And every disappointing image that you've ever taken is weak in at least a couple of them. So let's get practical. Let's take a look at some examples of each of these legs so you can start using this system in your own landscape photography today. So the first leg is location. And this might sound pretty obvious, right? But it goes deeper than just go out somewhere pretty to shoot. An interesting location doesn't have to be Iceland, it doesn't have to be Patagonia. It can be somewhere local that most people walk past, as long as it is, if it's the criteria that it is interesting to shoot. But if you do want to raise the stakes with your location, your photo is going to be stronger, inevitably, undoubtedly. Your photo is going to be stronger if your location is harder to reach, it's been rarely photographed, or you've got a real unique take on a well-known spot. So when you're planning a shoot, the first question to ask yourself is, am I in an interesting location and am I capturing it in a unique way that is genuinely different? Which then leads us on to the second leg of the table, which is composition. This is where most photographers go wrong, and it's often the thing that separates a snapshot from a professional looking landscape image. And remember what we said at the top of the video. If you can avoid composing your photos with your camera facing straight ahead at eye level, shooting at a 24mm focal length, which is the same as your phone, and if you can avoid having a lack of time so you're not rushing when you're out shooting, then almost inevitably you're no longer going to be taking boring snapshots that destroy your motivation to go out and shoot every time you see them and send you down this negative spiral to just quitting photography altogether. And the inverse of that's going to be true. You're going to be starting to take beautiful landscape photos that make your friends and family say wow when they see them. So the second question when you're out shooting that you should ask yourself before you take your shot is this a snapshot composition or is this a landscape photo that I'm just about to capture? Now, obviously there's more to composition than just avoiding taking snapshots, and we go much deeper into it in my landscape mastery program. But it's crazy how much you can improve your composition skills by just subtracting what doesn't work before you start trying to add what really does. And with that, you're now in the right location with the right composition. And there's another couple of legs of the professional landscape photography table that are critical if you ever want to be able to be truly proud of the work that you're creating. Okay, so the third leg, and this is the one that can absolutely make or break a photo more than anything else, is the conditions that you're shooting in. Light, weather, atmosphere, rainbows, inversions. This is what separates a photo that looks kind of fine, it looks okay, for one that looks truly and genuinely dramatic and professional. And these interesting conditions also add a sense of difficulty to a shot, because, well, even if it's just a nice, even like these shots over here, if it's just a nice beautiful sunrise somewhere local, which is what these are on the wall behind me, you still have to get up early and you still have to endure some of the elements to capture them. And this could be the difference between taking a snapshot in a well shot location and capturing an image in that same location that you really want to print and hang on your wall at home. So the third question you've got to ask before you press the shutter is, are the conditions that I'm shooting in either truly beautiful, interesting, or in its own right, are they difficult to capture? Which leads us on then to the final leg of the table. And most landscape photographers, well, they try to avoid this leg of the table, and it's also the reason why most landscape photographers' photos that I see online, without being too miserable and harsh about it, they're actually pretty crap. Right, the fourth, you might not want to hear this, but the fourth leg of this drawn out table metaphor is, it's the edit. And I know some people who like to call themselves landscape photographers who feel like editing is cheating, and if that is you watching this video right now, respectfully, you're an idiot. If you want to create professional landscape images, you've got to edit your photos. Every single professional landscape photographer edits their images. Every single one of them. If you know a pro, if you're certain you know a pro who doesn't edit their photos, leave a link to their portfolio in the comments below this video, because I'd love to take a look. And then I would love to probably explain to you that the images have been edited in one way or another. So with all that said, if you want to create breathtaking modern landscape images, then you've got to shoot in RAW and you've got to edit your files. That is it. End of story. And the edit is important because it's where we add depth back into the image. We can potentially remove distractions, we can bring out the color, and we bring the image in line with what we actually saw when we stood there taking the shot. Because remember, right, your camera doesn't capture the scene the way that your eyes saw it when you were stood there looking at this beautiful vista in sunrise with 15 rainbows and snow and hail and all the other stuff that was hopefully going on if you've got the other legs of this table absolutely nailed. Your camera doesn't see it like that because it's a camera. It's not a pair of eyeballs attached to the most powerful computer in the known universe. And what we do in the edit is we close the gap between what we saw with our eyes and was processed with our brain, and then what we get when we throw our SD card into the computer and look at that raw image on the screen for the first time. So the final question to ask when you're getting ready to press the shutter is, how is the scene going to look when it's edited? And this is important because pondering on how you're going to edit an image before you shoot it often changes how you shoot it in the first place. So on your next photography trip out, when you're ready to take the shot, ask yourself, am I in an interesting location and am I capturing it in a way that's genuinely different? Is this a snapshot composition or is this a landscape photo that I'm just about to capture? Ask yourself, are the conditions that I'm shooting in either beautiful, interesting, or difficult to capture? And then finally ask yourself, how is this scene going to look when it's edited? And if you can answer positively and confidently to 3 or more of these questions, then you've got all the makings of an incredible professional looking landscape photo right there in front of you. Now, of those 4 legs, there's one of them that photographers tell me they struggle with the most. And honestly, it's the one that can make the most dramatic difference to how your photos look. And that leg is editing. And if your editing process is basically just sliding up the contrast and calling it done, watch this video that's on screen right now to learn how to process any landscape photo to a professional level in just a couple of minutes using a handful of sliders inside Lightroom.